Thank you and welcome. I believe it's been a long day for all of you. My name is Jigar Doshi. I'm the Principal Cloud Architect with Oracle. And along with me is Eddie Ho, who is Master Principal Cloud Architect. And today we will be taking you through the Converged database lab. It's a pretty long lab, and I believe this is one of the longer labs that I have done in the past. So, Eddie, you want to maybe introduce yourself?
Hi, welcome everyone. So I think Jiga and I actually work in the cloud engineering team of Oracle in JPEG. So we call ourselves Center of Excellence, similar to JSON. So welcome everyone. So we hope you'll enjoy the exercise today.
So I believe most of you would have already signed up. If you have not, please do sign up. And so this is the account that we will be using for the lab today. I believe the instructions are already shared on the chat as well, for those of you who are just joining with us. So this is the overall lab setup for today. What are we trying to do here, right? So you have a application, a microservices-based application, which will be automatically set up for you. There will be a database, which is again created for you. And we would explore how we can manage different type of data types, be it JSON, XML, be it graph or spatial, or let's say ORDS or some other data types, and see how easy it is to manage with simple one single database and SQL interface, right? So that's a whole story about Converged database. Rest of the things you don't need to worry whether the microservices application, etc. That's automatically there, but for the completeness of the application, it is indicated here. And we will be primarily using SQL Developer, but for some of the labs, we may use the command line as well to demonstrate or go slightly deeper into the lab. These are the major activities in today's lab structure. We will first spend some time on lab setup because this can take up some time. Then once the lab is ready, we talk about JSON data type, how to manage with Oracle database, what can you do, how to store, how to retrieve, etc. This will be followed by Node.js. So you can notice, we've indicated star next to the first three steps. That's because I believe we have 1 hour, 1.5 hour kind of a time with us today. And this overall lab can easily take 2 hours, right? So our aim is we finish the top 3, time permitting, then we go on to the next rest of the labs, right? But the intention is to get you up and ready, get the environment ready, so that you can practice at your leisure. The tenancy should be available to you for 30 days, and I think you have enough credits to run through this lab completely. And when your lab is ready, this is how your screen should look like. Okay. So having said that, let's proceed with the, let's start the lab first. And in case you have any problems during the lab, post your questions in the Q&A chat window and indicate, because there are multiple labs, indicate which lab number, which task number, and what problem is having, right? So it will help us to help you better. Okay. So I believe most of you would have done your registration, and this should be your first login screen after registration. So can we confirm whether most of the audience has finished the registration, or do we need to walk through the registration?
No, I don't think we need to go through the registration.
So let's jump into the lab straight away. I believe the lab is given in the chat. So if you want to follow along, open the link Eddie has shared in the chat as well. Now, what's Converged database, right? So before we jump into the actual actions, let's just spend some time on what is converged database, right? And why is Oracle talking so much about it? So on the left, what you see is a single purpose database. So there is a database for, let's say, your key value pair, you have a database for storing JSON, you have a database for spatial, you have a database for relational data, and so on. And versus what Oracle calls multimodal or converged database, where you have one single database to manage all the data types. And so why converged database, right? So the first one, the advantage is you don't need to move data in and out for various different use cases. Use a standard interface to access all the type of data, SQL interface, which everybody has tried and tested over so many years. And you can implement a single uniform data access control so that the security is much more tighter versus having your data duplicated and spread across multiple data stores and making the security nightmare to manage. Yeah. So that's the reason, or that's the converged database that we are talking about. And what we would see today is how JSON, Node.js, XML, Spatial, Graph, or other data types, how they can work together in one single database along with your traditional data types. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you change the data type or a database, a data store for your application. So let's go to step 1. This is the registration. I believe we have all done and we have signed in. Let's go to step 2. As you can see, I'm using a Windows desktop. If you're using Mac or using something else, your screen may look slightly different or the steps may be slightly different. So to begin with, we will download this zip file. What this is going to do is it's going to set up the network rules required for this application, because there are some complex rules which are required to open up the ports, etc. And it will it will provision the compute instance, database, everything for you. So in case you have existing VCN, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So it's best that you follow the steps and provision it afresh. As you can see in this list, there are multiple ports which are listed, and for multiple different services, right? So for ORDS, we have a different port. We have a different port for database listener, for your application, and so on. Okay. So since we are, going in with a fresh stack, we will not be looking at the steps to edit the existing VCN. We will assume it's a new fresh setup. So step 1. So this is what we traditionally refer as the hamburger menu, the 3 dash. And once you are there, look for resource manager. And we would create a stack. So this is underlying using Terraform, which is the standard industry mechanism for infrastructure as a code management. We have a zip file, which we have downloaded in the previous step. And as you can see, it has picked up the information. So this is what we should be seeing if you have the correct zip file uploaded. We will leave the name as default. We're not changing anything. We will specify a tag if required. As a best practice, I always do that. So in this case, it will depend on which tenancy have you chosen. So if you have chosen Hyderabad or you've chosen Mumbai, you may see a different value here, but select one of the availability domains. And we will need a public SSH public key. So the steps to create SSH public key can be slightly more involved if you're doing this for the first time. So let's go to, I will be using an application known as PuttyGen to create the key. Now we say generate. I need to move my mouse cursor to generate some random seed for the key. I'll stop the sharing so that my key, it's not really visible to everyone. All right. So we have the key. The key needs to be provided here. Select a shape. Choose a standard 2.24, 2.4. And you can choose run apply, but just to explain it a little better, I will not do this, and I'll just create the stack for now. If you have any questions, you can, while following this, please do paste it in the chat and Q&A, and me and Eddie will try to answer it. Eddie, something you want to mention here? The lab is being provisioned.
No, all good. You continue, please. Did you start to apply?
No, I did not do the apply purposefully. So there are two steps to the stack. One is plan and one is apply. You could choose during creation itself to run apply. And here I'm doing it manually. So resource manager is OCA is native service, which provides you Terraform automation to run scripts and manage the stacks. All right, so this shows that yes, it has succeeded. That's good. Now I would choose to apply. You can choose the log levels, what level of logging you want, and any tags that you may want to apply. This can take a few minutes depending on how it progresses. here at this step right now. If you have any problems in downloading the pre-provided stack or creating the jobs, do let us know. All right, so that's good. So this apply has finished, and it would have created the required resources for us. So before we proceed, let's just verify has it created. Yep, the database is created. I mean, the instance is created, and it has picked up the shape which I had specified. So once your job is finished, you should see something called application information. And here you should see a link to connect to your graphical interface. So I just copy the link, open a new tab, paste it, and I should be able to connect to my instance. Okay, I guess machine is still good, starting up. Let's give it a while. When it comes up. So once your graphical interface is you're able to connect to the newly provisioned computer, this is how you should see it. You should see a SQL developer as well as a browser, which will allow you to access the same lab as well as the pre-provisioned links for the activities. Right. So the links here or for that verifying if the lab is correctly set up, etc. So let's see what's the next step. We have provisioned our instance. We have accessed. So that does take it to us to end of lab 3. So far, we have just done the environment setup. And in case you are accessing the lab from the browser, which is provided in the as part of your compute instance, you may notice the number of labs here will be slightly different. That's because the entire setup is combined as lab 1, whereas what the link that is shared has it's slightly split. So that's the only difference. So the next step is to initialize the lab. Maybe we want to start up the database, listener, and the related processes. Right. So yeah, we will go to the scripts which are already provided to set up the lab. Let's do that. This will take a few minutes. It will start up the database, start up the application. And at the end, you should be seeing this message. Once you see this message, it means yes, the stack is started, the database application, everything is set up for you with the IP address and the ports. This IP address and ports will be different, obviously, depending on what IPs are sent to you. Let me see if there are any questions. Did you see any questions on the chat that we need to answer?
No, none so far.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone goes through. Just remember, you have to start this server. Otherwise, you can't even do the first exercise.
So this is the most important part. If your lab is initialized correctly, rest of the things will go pretty much as expected. So this is, if you finish till here, I think then you should be able to really accomplish the rest of the labs very smoothly. Okay, so we have this. I just, you don't need to do this, but let me just show you. Yes, we have, this is what where your application is running. And there is a database which is created for you. All right. So, and to further verify if everything is okay, we will go to the browser, and from the workshop link, let's just try to see if the application opens up for us. Yes, if you see this page, your application is also running, the sample application which is provided. That's working fine. Your database is set up, and we are good to go. Eddie, you want to take proceed with the first lab?
Sorry. Yes, I can. Certainly, I can. Let me share screen. You need to stop sharing. Thank you. So let's look at my screen. Yeah, let's look at my screen first. Yeah, that's the one. So I'm here. So before we go any further, so you can look at your browser within the VM itself. So here's how you do it, because Jika has been showing the one outside the VM. So you can actually go to this workshop guide, Converged database for developers, and then select this one, and then we'll follow the order in this one to avoid any confusion. So we'll start the JSON one. I won't get into details of what it is or whatever. So the lab itself actually is trying to show you how easy to deal with JSON in the sense of insert update, like partial change of the JSON, and also how to select different parts of the JSON and then blend it with relational. You will see how easy to do that. That's one of the key benefits of what a Converged DB is. So it handles simple things, like how you want to insert JSON, update JSON, and then you also can select different parts of the JSON for queries or whatever, right? So before we start, we actually need to do this. We need to test the connectivity to the database. So let's do this. And let me do this. Right. So assume you have started the database, right? So one simple thing you can actually check is whether the database service is available in terms of the network services. So what's it called? What else? Actually, forget about it. So suddenly, not out of the mind.
Said you need to set up the environment. That's why it's.
I did. Yeah, I'm not there yet. Okay, cool. So let me follow. Thank you. So let's go to follow the instructions there. So set up the environment. Yeah, JK is right because the other script actually has said it. So let me follow this one first. Okay.
Now it should work.
Yeah, now it should work. No wonder I was wondering, well, come I actually can't record it. Okay, anyway, So you will see that JXLPDB. Thank you, Jacob. So you see the service is there, right? So this is where we are going to connect. I'm not going to type it, so I don't know whether the copy will work this time. Sometimes it doesn't, but then we will actually do it something different. Where am I? Yeah. So, no, it doesn't work. So I have to do this. Very, very annoying, but minor issue. So I've done a Control C so that I can actually connect. Okay, all good. The reason I need to connect is because I'll need to run the insert script soon as part of the exercise. So let's go to connect to the SQL developer. I won't expand it because there's an easy way to look at it as well. So if I have already opened it, but what you can do is go to your JDeveloper, just right click, and then actually, let me keep this one. Delete it. Okay. So what you can do is just right click and then, actually double click will do. And then it will connect to a JSON connection for you. Don't need to worry about the username, password, that level of details. We connect. Yeah, so that's what I have. So I just keep some of the queries I have. And then let's start with something very simple. So let's look at how many records do we have first. Okay, so actually I want to show you something else, but we can do this. So this is too easy, but I actually want to show you something. So this is actually a table with the JSON support. So the purchase order is the one. So the structure is, it has an ID. So this is actually support something called SODA development. So JSON development for Oracle database. And it has a auto-generated ID, and then also has a timestamp, and then use a crops to actually store the JSON document itself. One of the things it actually has should have a constraint. Yes, it should have a constraint. So the constraint is saying that this JSON document must be a JSON. What does that mean? It's actually Oracle, when you put a constraint like this, Oracle will actually enforce the content you store into that field must be a valid or well-formed JSON document. That's as simple as that. So it's done automatically for you. So that's what it is. For any JSON table, you actually can do this. And then now we look at how to insert a record. And we'll do this. Then, so I just paste it. You can see that I'm actually inserting a very natural JSON documents, right? So there's no clunky API you have to deal with or whatever, just a very natural string representation of a JSON document. Imagine your application, you actually can build your JSON document and then just put it in as a column variable, and then to one and next insert statement, and then that's what you do. Actually, let me do this. And then you execute. And before you continue, I always like to commit. Right? So commit that statement. So get rid of this one, and then look at the next step. The next step is actually look at the document itself. So there should be two records with the same PO number. And if you look at the time, let's pick this one. This is the one I am going to reference in the exercise. This is the one I'm going to delete later. Yeah. So it asks you to just pick the first one, right? And then also update that record as well. So let's copy this one. Actually, I put it into here. somewhere. Okay. And then I just do it now. So the insert one is quite easy to understand. You just insert the whole JSON document, right? So for this one, because each record has a natural, like a unique ID from a UUID generator. So it's actually unique. So in order to actually get the data out and update it, you actually have to refer to the ID. And that's the fastest way you can actually refer back to the JSON document. Now, what I'm doing is I want to do a partial update of this record, change the requester to something else. But before I do that, I can actually look at the document itself and look at the content. So at the moment, I've got the requester as a shala band, right? So what I want to do is just replace it to MSD only. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, and then I'll commit. Now let's go back to the record itself. Select the record. This is the one I'm dealing with, right? 31 some. Actually, no, 21. 2121. Yeah, that's this one. So you can see that I've already changed the requester. Oh, actually, how can we look at this? Oh, it's giving me. Yeah, so I'm getting this one called MSDHONI. It's a new requester for this one, right? So I just update this one with a unique ID, and that's a 2021.
Eddie, on a side note, that name should be familiar to everybody on the call. I mean, anybody who's from India would know that person.
Oh, sorry, I don't know that.
He happens to be one of India's most famous cricketers. So yes.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Okay, so let's do that. Yeah, so let's look at a more complicated way to deal with the JSON document. So we have got this JSON documents where you have seen the examples, right? And so how can I actually access different components of the JSON as if this is a relational tables with columns and rows, right? So what you can do is do the very simple thing to us is by using something called a dotted notation. So the dotted notations actually let you do. You always need to have a table alias. Remember, that's the must-have. You can't just take out this J and then try to access the column directly. So you must have the alias, whatever letter or string, and then j.po document, which is the document itself, which is the table column. Remember, we have these columns called PO documents, right? So the table and the column name, and then multiple levels of the JSON document key inside, right? So this is how you do it. The most simple selection of the JSON records from the table, right? So you can actually add a condition based on a nested JSON key values as well. And then the next one is you want to do conditions. So you can actually say, hey, actually I only want to look at the records when it's nested inside with within a line item, and then one of that has a part and then UPC code as well. So this question mark means it may not be there, right? So it will actually use a predicate function to actually check whether the JSON document exists, and also the value matches this condition as well. So let's see. Yeah, so we have a couple of records, right? So just match the UPC code. So these are very, very simple way. And then we'll go into something very complicated. I probably can't explain in detail within the time constraint, but I will try. So let's look at the query here. So what it does is trying to convert from a JSON document, the JSON table, and then expand it into a table. So from this column called PO documents, and then convert it to a table form. Well, when I say table form, it's relational table form. And then it will keep, you can actually name the column, so it's just like PO number, and then just use a context to access the PO number within the JSON document. And then you can actually nest it within the document itself and say the PO documents line items within an array, and then within the line item array for each element, you can actually nest to create an item number, description, that sort of things. So you basically flatten out a nested JSON documents to from each record of the JSON table to form a relational view of the JSON records. Obviously, one record in this table will have multiple records, rows coming out from this way of selecting the values from within the JSON document. So we are selecting only one document, or actually two maybe, but then we actually get, we are getting two. Yeah. So for this one, probably only one, but actually expanded by the line item. So
Eddie, there was a question on this, on the exact same point, whether we can combine or have a filter on nested key. So I think yes, this example does answer that.
Yeah. I think, definitely. It can actually handle the nested keys, right? So this is only pattern now. You don't see any conditions, right? But you can actually, because of the column, you can actually do the item number conditions as well, right? So that's obviously, that's possible. So this is another way to do it. Now I will explain later why do we want to do this. This is probably showing you different examples. Yeah, so this is another way to flatten out the document as well. So you may ask, why do I want to do this? It looks so complicated. The reason you actually want to do this is not to type query like this every time you want to query something. You would actually use the earlier version to select the query plus other functions to do that. The reason you actually want to define something called a JSON table using that function to define a structure like this is actually you want to create views so that it's easy for your applications to access the values without having to look at the path easily. So it's like a pre-built queries for you to access the JSON document more easily. So that's why you use this type of structure, JSON table structure, to help you to build it once, and then you use it for all, right? So you do this. Okay, one view, got another view as well, remember? Yeah, so this is another complex view, but just don't worry, right? So every time you only look at one particular column and then see how you can actually decompose the value. Okay, so this is where we are. Oh, I struggle to navigate just because I can't copy. Okay, oh, good. Yeah, so I do this. Now, the whole purpose of doing these complicated things is actually to access the JSON documents or JSON tables using a very, very relational approach. So this one doesn't look like a JSON document anywhere. Like it looks like a normal relational database table. Right? So with this, I can select the records like this, and it appears to be relational, right? The reason we want to do this and make it very easy is we want your application developer who is more natural to deal with the JSON documents, work on the JSON document itself. And then for the people who actually want to query, including running analytics reports or whatever, they can actually use this view to do it. And that's why we see the value of making it very, very easy for both, trying to entertain both requirements. Right? So at last, this is actually just a way to show you how we can actually create the JSON document, but use some sort of PT printing of the JSON documents. Right? It looks nicer, really. I think depends on how you look at it, right? Yeah, this PT printing, I think it's with the new line or whatever. It looks better than when I try to change it earlier on. And probably a repeat of the previous one, not much difference. Yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah, probably repeat to make it nicer. And that's all. But this is only the tip of the iceberg of JSON on Oracle. So a few things is, it actually has, if you go to the JSON Developers Guide for 19.1 database, it has quite a lot of documentation, a lot of features to handle the complex requirements of arrays and then predicates or whatever. That's one. Second one I want to talk about is the Oracle 21.1/21c database has a even better support of the JSON. So you see that I talk about having a column constraint on whether the content is a JSON. We use a constraint called isJSON, but on 21c there is a native data type called JSON, and the storage itself is actually an optimized version of a binary representation of the JSON document. It's not even a text document. That's two. Third one is the always free account you have actually comes with autonomous database, right? 20 gig of the autonomous database, and you can actually build this type of features to try to learn the JSON, all the features of JSON there. And then on top of that, Oracle Cloud also has a very competitive offering of JSON database called autonomous JSON as well. So you can, if what you want is just to build a database purely on JSON, you can actually look at the autonomous JSON offering on the Oracle Cloud. So good for me. Jiga, you want to take it over for the next session? Next lab.
Thank you, Eddie. So from JSON, we move on to Node.js. I think that this is a short lab. So I'm not going to spend much time on what Node.js is or why we should use. I think that you can write books about it. So, but what we are going to see is what can we do with Oracle database and Node.js, right? So what is possible, and again, how does it fit into the single, converged database story? So let's just first verify my application. So let me follow it from here. I think it should be easier. Okay, so this is a confirmation that yes, the application is set up and it's working fine. Good, that's good for us. So I'm pretty sure if you are a developer, you would have used Postman at one point or other. If you're not, worry not. It's a very simple application that we are going to use to just make some calls and verify. The idea is to show you that, okay, the previous lab Eddie showed was, completely on SQL via SQL Developer. There are some levels which take you through via SQL Plus, which is the standard database access utility. And now this is what we are going to look at is from Notepad, right? So let me not bother about updating it. Yeah. Let's open a new tab. Let's see what the lab has to say. So let's make a post call. Now, in real life, you're obviously going to be doing all this programmatically, right? I don't think you will be using Postman, but this is to show you how it would work in principle. So I'm making a post call. I'm going to send some data. So I will come to body, say raw, and say I'm going to share the JSON data, and let me say send. All right. So I get a 200 response. Let me make it slightly bigger. Yeah. So I get a 200 response. The time it took, yes, it tells me yes, one row is affected. And what did I insert? I inserted too much shoe, right? So let's remember that part. Now let's just verify whether do we have we is the record in the database, right? We have done a post. Now let's do a get. So let's come to the second part, which is after the insertion retrieval. Go back. Since I'm doing get, I don't need to bother with much of the details. I can just say, right, send. Now remember, all these calls that I'm doing, the data is actually coming from the database, right? So there is no other data storage coming from the database directly. So that's the whole, the gist of this workshop is to show you how easy is it. Even as a developer, you don't need to worry about how the data is stored or how does the database manage it. We can query it from for a specific PID. So this time I called the products, which is like giving me the full inventory. So let's just verify that. See, if you were to call it directly, this is the same result that you will get that you are seeing in Postman. Yeah. And okay, so this is the product, which is 490. Okay. Too much to. So if this were being called from the application, it would have been, it would show you this image. So we have done two operations so far. One is post and get. What's next? So we are going to update a price, right? So let's just first verify the price for that product, right? So let's go back to the application. Just here, let me look at products. And I'm going to, this is for polo shirt, correct? Product 13. Yes, so this is product 13. I'm going to update the price, right? Using again the same post call. Let's come here, change it to post. I will go change what I'm going to insert, what change I'm going to make. So we are changing the price from $10 to $12. Currently, the price is $10 here from in our catalog. Maybe let me open a fresh tab. That's better. Let's say what I want to change. I'm calling the update product. All right, this time it's okay. This is I have a status 200. That's okay. Good. And now let's come and refresh the catalog. Yeah, and then we can see the new price is $12. So this is how a typical flow would be. Even if let's say if this was a real application that you were managing, you are nowhere, looking at how the database is making that change. You are not issuing an update call. You're not issuing a select query. It's purely the API calls that the REST API calls that you're making. So I guess yes, that's pretty much it as far as the lab is concerned. But I'm pretty sure Node.js in itself is like a huge subject area itself. And if you want to learn more about how Node.js would work, be helpful for your application, maybe visit the links which are given here. So that concludes lab 3 here, which is actually in the link which is shared. That's lab 5. Let me just take a pause here. Is there any question? Sorry, that was lab 6. The next one is lab XML. I believe we are good on time, Jason.
Yes, we are.
Okay, all right. We were actually thinking we may not reach this stage. So I think we have enough time.
Yeah, so I think we should continue the original plan to continue on the ORDS as a microservices for JSON, because it's a good continuation from your Node.js, looking at the other way to expose the database content as a JSON service. And then we can come back to look at its XML and then spatial when we have more time, right? Because it's more related than anything else.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So you want to take up ORDS?
Yeah. I want to take up ORDS and then run through the exercise.
Okay, so then after that, I will take up XML and Spatial.
Yeah.
Because ORDS itself is like I think the largest of the biggest of the labs.
It has many steps, but
so it may take us to the end as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Cool. Over to you, Eddie. I'll let you just stop sharing here.
Yeah. Thank you. So with this, let's look at the ORDS. What ORDS is, don't know whether you have done it. It's a way to actually expose the Oracle database data to the form of JSON, and then without writing, with minimum coding. I'll put it this way. You actually see that. So let's start. Okay. So first of all, let's look at some sanity check. I think it shouldn't be there. this is not found because we have not enabled the service itself. So let's start. So we can actually, the only thing we actually want to do here is actually on the JSON data, and then we won't handle the XML and spatial, but you can actually continue the lab, and I've already tried myself. So skip this all the way. The first thing we actually want to do is enable. So ORDS, regardless of which database version you use, it actually has two major steps. One is you enable a RESTful service for the schema at the schema level, and then enable at the table level. So we are doing it at the schema level first. So let's go to the SQL developer, and then just right click on JSON schema, and then just say enable the service. And then it will enable the service. I believe, yeah, I think I will need to enable, uncheck this. Remember the uncheck the authorization so that you don't have to log in. So this is what it is. And then finish. Done. And then the next step is to enable the table level. So these are just the steps, right? Just enable. Now, and the next thing I want to do is, remember when we did the JSON exercise, this JSON table called purchase order. So we want to enable this table to expose the content as JSON RESTful API services. So let's go to enable this object, right? So let's do that. The purchase order, enable REST service. Again, take this one, enable this one, and then shut down. So we have enabled it, but this is just the beginning. We haven't defined how we want to shape and then URL to access the service, right? So we need to do one more steps, right? These are just enable the service. You can actually run it many times. It doesn't matter. So now let's look at the basics, right? So once you have enabled that, so you'll see the whole table content, right? Obviously, we want to do that. We don't want to do that because it's probably not very useful to have just a RESTful API to select the whole table out. And what if we have millions of records, right? So we want to be more selective on that. And it actually explains to you how it works, right? In terms of the PDB, the schema, in the URL. Let's look at it again. So the way we have it is, so you look at the PDB. This is the like PDB of the database within the container, and then this is a schema, and this is a table. That's it. Like, very simple. That's a very simple way.
Schema in this context refers to the table owner. So I think because JSON schema can mean different things. Just to clarify.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. So now next thing we want to do is actually to build something more fine-grained, right? So because we haven't been able to, we can't say, okay, just want to have a single record out of the database. So let's do this. We expose this service at this level, right? So we want to create a REST API data service, and then we want to create something called CNVG. So let's do this, CNVG, right? So CNVG. Go down from the SQL developer, and then here we actually do, I believe it's a module. Yes, I believe it's a module, which is, yeah, module, right? I'm sorry, I don't remember. And then new module, and then the module name is CNG, CNG. I think so. Yeah, CNVG, sorry, spelling mistake. Then CNVG slash, then publish. And the pattern should be CNVG ID. Yeah. Yeah, and then save. Done. So we created a new module within the RESTful API service, and it has a pattern like this. Basically, it's a CNVG and then slash an ID. And then we do another one. We actually do the templates this time. So the template has a pattern like this. So add the template and then see NVG. Slash, and then that's it. Okay. So we have, if you notice, we have two templates. One is for the full table, one is by a specific ID. And then I define a get handler get.
So here we are showing you from SQL developer, but obviously if you have hundreds of tables, you don't need to do this one at a time. There are PLSQL packages available which can programmatically do this for you.
So with the handler to handle a get verb, then you can actually say the parameter is ID, and then you can actually define how you want to select the information out. So obviously for this one, it's basically the whole row out. You can also do the PO document or whatever. It's entirely up to you. Remember, we have dealt with very complex way to access the JSON. You can do this. You can send out a fragment instead of the whole document as well, right? So so I think we only need to save this one. Then run. Okay. Yeah, let's say 200, whatever. Yeah. So this is how it will work. It basically let you debug, right? So let's save it. Yeah, the query, and then you do it. So let's do this. Let's try out the 200. Okay, we get it. We got it 200. And how about we try 202? Yeah, so there's another one as well. So basically if look at our query. So we actually search for a actually a JSON key PO number, and then search by the PO number to actually find you the document. Right. So that's how it works. Okay, cool. And then what's next for this? That will be, now we add another handler. This time with the whole table instead of the individual records. So we add another handler. Sorry. Okay, if you look at it, how it works, it's actually using SQL. It's using SQL statements to help you build JSON service, right? So this is select the whole table, and I just need to save it. And that's it. So every handler has a record for the SQL statement to support the query itself. So now we want to look at the whole table again, based on what I just did. Right, so this is the whole table. So, yeah, that's the one. Okay, what's the previous one? Oh, this is using, no, it's the same. Okay, cool. So now we add another handle like quickly called post, and then we try to change it. So let's do this. Cool, we can do that. And then post. I need to add a JSON type. Because I'm planning to send a JSON in to update the records. So that's why I need to define the MIME type of the method. So this time, actually this is insert rather than update. Sorry. Yeah, probably save it rather than just execute it. So save it. Okay, so
No, Eddie, I believe the values, right? I think this is
the single
we're saving. We're saving the. I think it should be.
Is it because I didn't? I got it wrong somewhere. But that was binding variable. So
It has to be bind variable, right? You are actually, this has to be in the actual post call. You need to pick up the one with.
Oh, this is the one, not the ID one.
Yeah.
You
need to use the.
Yeah. Got it. Yes. No. Okay, so yeah, I should do this one. Sorry, make a mistake. Thank you. Thanks, Jigga. Yeah, that works. Okay, so now with this, we can do. We can still do a read, and then we look at what we do. Okay, so I need to do this. Okay. Oh, I need to use
Postman.
Yeah, I need to set up Postman, which I didn't do. That's fine. Should be very quick. So Postman is this, and then
Use the file and new tab. I think that will be easier.
Oh yes, it's the same. Okay.
New tab. Take new tab.
You can
Cancel this.
cancel this. Okay.
File. New tab.
Okay, are you talking about this one? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So now we just change it to get to post.
And then JSON.
Go to body. Yeah.
Body is the raw and then the JSON type, right? Yeah. Yeah. Always remember to do this, the JSON type. Otherwise, you might have some interesting behavior. Okay. Okay, this part. No. Yeah. Okay, I copy over. Body. This one. I think I'm post. Yeah. So let's post the record.
Maybe you need to delete the first line. It's extra line.
Oh. Thank you. Done. Okay, yeah, that's normal. It doesn't give me a response. That's normal. So what I need to do, because I'm adding a 120 records. So let's do this. Yeah, that's the records I just enter. Let's see whether it's anything interesting. This one, 1017 at the end. So 1017 at the end. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, that's so good. Okay, for this one, let's go back to this one. So I guess, hey, Jigga, I think there's no point for me to repeat to have the put handler for the update. So we can.
No, it's okay. I think, yeah, the idea is to show, for the audience, it's to understand that, yes, you can enable the REST APIs at a table level or for your queries very easily, programmatically, and you don't need to have a separate data store, separate programs or languages or whatever be the case just to manage a different data type. Everything can be stored and managed natively inside Oracle database.
And you don't, the only thing you need is just SQL to build RESTful API, right? So you see that we actually use PL SQL with the parameters to send in the body and things like this. So I won't repeat the put because the put is actually similar. You can actually continue it. There's not much drama. Just add one more handler, and then so that we can focus on other topics as well, right? So with this, Jacob, how much time do we have?
Yeah. So, Jason, do we want to stop here or we want to continue?
Yeah, I think this is a good good place to stop. I think we've already showed them kind of the power of you using the Converged database for development. There are definitely a lot of labs here that the audience can take advantage of, right? We'll definitely share all the content here with them. So if they want to run the labs themselves.
Jason, I want to make a few points here before we close off.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So earlier in the day, I had a query from somebody saying, okay, if I store all my data in one database, it breaks the 12 factors, right? Microservices where each data type should be a different data store. So let's say if this was one database, right, you could still have multiple PDBs depending on the data types and store, like if you want to individually manage, you could do that and still use the same relational features that, Eddie showed earlier, or it is mentioned in the lab. It just works the same. Second point was about somebody said, how does it scale, or all these fancy data types? It's good to see here, but does it really scale in real world, right? So for XML, let me just make one case. Some of the biggest core banking systems in the world use XML database. I will not take the application name, but it's heavily used, and the entire core banking application runs inside XML record. And it's used across several countries in the world. So it's not that these are just proof of concept or samples which are shown here, but they are really extremely powerful built features, and you can make amazing applications out of this. That's it from me. Thank you. Jason, over to you.
Thanks, Jigar. Can you guys stop sharing there for a second?
Yep, sure.
Okay, so we've reached the end of today's session. So I want to thank each of you for staying with us all in this event today. It's been a long day, and we do appreciate you staying with us throughout the whole session. Now, just as a reminder, all the content will be sent to you after this event. So if you wanted to run the labs yourself, you can do so. And I think that's it. So take advantage of the free certification, as we said before, and hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.